Around early morning, I was balancing a yogurt cup on my knee and pretending not to hear the sales floor celebrate another contract when my laptop chimed with a permission request I had never seen before. Not my work laptop, my personal one. That detail matters. In network security, details always matter. Ownership matters, access matters, consent matters, most of all. I worked at Quillforge Defense, a network security firm packed with people who could explain zero-trust architecture over lunch, yet somehow trusted office gossip more than the woman sitting 3 feet away from them. I was 28, an operations lead with the glamorous privilege of translating technical disaster into executive language. I could talk to engineers, auditors, and legal counsel without anyone storming out. That skill should have made life easier. Instead, and it gave me a front-row seat to my boss, Dana Voss. Dana had floated into leadership the way decorative pillows arrive in expensive hotel lobbies. No one knew who ordered them, but there they were, positioned prominently and serving no practical purpose. She and our owner, Luke Rayner, had worked at the same company years ago. That old loyalty had apparently outweighed the small issue of competence. Dana ran our compliance operations despite treating every video call like a hostage negotiation with her own webcam. She could not screen share properly on Teams. She once asked whether ransomware was a type of firewall. Yet somehow, whenever I pointed out that she made risky calls or misunderstood basic technology, my coworkers smiled. The patient smile people reserve for women they think are too observant for their own comfort. Dana means well, they would say. You know how she is, they would add. Yes, I thought. Clueless, political, and very sure that confidence counts as skill. The pop-up on my personal laptop asked me to approve a device management profile. I declined. Then I checked the logs. A remote access utility had attempted installation through a link tied to a corporate audit portal. My stomach went cold, then sharp. The link had been forwarded from Dana after she asked me, in one of her syrupy messages, to review a compliance worksheet from home because she needed it before early morning. I had opened the portal on my personal machine. She knew that. I did not storm into her office. Women are trained to make a scene only when we want to lose. I took screenshots, exported the event logs, preserved the email headers, niched and copied everything into a secure folder on my work device. Then I emailed myself a summary from my personal account to create a clean timestamp trail. Documenting facts before emotions is not cold. It is self-defense, with better formatting. By late morning, our security team launched a company-wide system audit. Dana claimed she had found suspicious data tied to my endpoint activity. She said it in that solemn, tragic tone people use when they want credit for discovering the fire they started. Slack channels went quiet. Heads turned. One coworker, Mina, looked at me with sympathy. Another, Wes, avoided eye contact entirely. That was when I knew Dana had gotten ahead of the story. She had planted enough smoke to make people wonder whether I was the spark. I stood in the conference room while security collected device records. Dana folded her hands like a school principal in a badly written drama. "For your protection, too," she said. That line nearly made me laugh. I knew company policy. A personal device can only be monitored with written consent under a defined security program. Our handbook said so. The state law where we worked was even plainer. Unauthorized access to a personal device is a legal problem, not a management style. I had read the handbook the way other people read horoscopes, because women in offices like mine do not survive by assuming fairness. We survive by reading the footnotes. So while Dana played concerned executive, I sat down, opened my notes, and prepared to let her walk straight into the trap she had built for me. Sometime in the early afternoon, the audit room started to feel less like an investigation and more like a theater rehearsal, where one actress had forgotten her lines. Security had pulled network logs from every flagged endpoint. Mine was on the list because Dana had reported data movement she called abnormal. That word did heavy lifting in our industry. It could mean insider threat, policy breach, or, in Dana language, any activity she did not understand but wanted to sound important describing. Jiro from Incident Response asked the first useful question. Which device was involved? Dana jumped in before I could answer. Her voice had that brittle little shine of borrowed authority. Her laptop showed unusual sync behavior tied to the audit files. I folded my hands. My work laptop or my personal laptop? Dana blinked once. Twice. The room got very still. Jiro looked up from his notes. Personal devices are out of scope, unless enrolled. Exactly, I said. Mine was not. Then I slid printed emails across the table. Not dramatically. Just neatly. Like evidence prefers. Dana had sent me the audit portal link and asked me to review documents from home. The header trail showed the link had been altered through an admin console she should not have been using without security approval. The logs from my personal device showed a remote utility attempted installation after that click. Declined, thankfully. Recorded, fortunately. I also had screenshots of Dana asking me, days earlier, whether there was a way to see what people saved off company systems. At the time, I thought she was being nosy. In hindsight, she was drafting a crime with punctuation errors. No one spoke. Then Mina whispered, "Oh." That tiny word was the sound of a room switching sides. Jiro asked Dana whether she had authorization to deploy monitoring software. Dana smiled, the way people smile when they realize facts are not on their side, but hope their teeth still are. I did not deploy anything. I only triggered a visibility check. Jiro pinched the bridge of his nose. That is not a term. Wes, who had spent months telling me I was too harsh about Dana, stared at the table like it had personally disappointed him. I kept my voice calm. I knew anger would be remembered longer than evidence. My personal laptop contained tax files, account records, draft trust paperwork for my mother, and property documents related to a small condo I was saving to buy with my sister. Not because I was reckless, but because adults have adult records. Any unauthorized monitoring could have exposed financial account numbers, estate planning notes, even attorney communications. That is exactly why device boundaries exist. Women are often told to separate feelings from business. Fine. Here is business. Privacy breaches create liability. If a manager accesses personal financial material without consent, the company could face employment claims, data handling claims, and a very expensive meeting with outside counsel. Luke Rayner arrived not long after, all polished shoes and emergency charm. Dana stood a little straighter, like a child who expects an aunt to excuse everything. She began explaining that she had acted out of caution, that she was only trying to protect Quillforge, that perhaps I had misunderstood. Then Jiro projected the audit sequence on the screen. Her altered link, on her admin credentials, her failed install push, her report against me, filed after the push failed. No one needed my help after that. The facts looked almost rude in high definition. Luke turned to Dana with the expression of a man discovering his old loyalty had just become a billable problem. She tried one last pivot. I thought her device might contain company-sensitive material. I answered before anyone else could. Thinking is not authorization, and you do not solve a suspected policy violation by committing one. That landed. By the time the meeting ended, my coworkers were no longer giving Dana the benefit of the doubt. They were giving her a wide berth, which is much more honest. I wish I could say I felt vindicated. What I felt was something sharper. Relief. Yes. But also the familiar irritation of a woman who had been accurate too early and therefore ignored until the mess became impossible to hide. That was when I decided survival would not be enough. I wanted the lesson to stick. Later that day, people began visiting my desk in careful little pairs, as if accountability might be contagious. Mina brought tea. Wes brought an apology so polished it almost had a reflection. He said he should have listened when I warned him Dana did not understand the tools she kept misusing. I thanked him because grace is strategic, but inside I filed the moment where it belonged, under useful and late. Office memory is selective. When a woman spots danger early, people call her intense. When the danger explodes, those same people call her perceptive. Same woman, same facts, better audience. Human Resources asked whether I wanted to file a formal complaint. I did, but I wanted it done properly. Too many employees complain in broad emotional strokes and leave management room to retreat into ambiguity. I wrote mine like a closing argument in a very expensive suit. I listed the unauthorized attempt to install monitoring software on my personal laptop. I attached the email chain, screenshots, and logs. I cited the company handbook section on personal device access. I described the potential exposure of private financial and legal documents. Then I added the detail that made legal sit up straight. Dana had reported me to security after her own unauthorized action failed, creating reputational risk and a false implication of misconduct. When people underestimate women, they often mistake calm for softness. Calm is only softness if you have never seen it sharpened. I also did something else. I called an employment attorney for a consultation, not because I wanted fireworks, but because I wanted options. That is a principle I learned from my mother, who had once spent years untangling a house deed after a relative assured her a verbal promise was enough. It was not. Verbal promises are confetti. Written rights are bricks. The attorney confirmed what I already suspected. I had grounds to raise privacy and retaliation concerns if the company mishandled this. She advised me to keep records outside the office, avoid discussing legal strategy with coworkers, and request that any outcome be documented in writing. Smart, clean, boring advice, the kind that saves people. By the next morning, Luke had called an executive review. Dana was placed on leave while they assessed scope and intent. My coworkers treated me like I had survived a shipwreck. I had not. I had survived office politics, which is similar except the sharks wear badges. Then came the twist no one expected. Quillforge needed someone to take over a large client remediation project Dana had been fumbling for months. The project involved contract renewals, audit response language, and a pending dispute over service credits. It was delicate, expensive, and exactly the sort of mess created when someone who cannot manage a screen share also tries to negotiate legal exposure. Luke asked me to stabilize it. I said yes, but not cheaply. I requested a title review, salary adjustment, and written authority over the project scope. I also asked for an updated employment agreement clarifying that my role included risk governance and that any personal devices used for emergency access remained outside automatic company monitoring unless I signed explicit consent. I wanted reimbursement for outside counsel if internal misconduct affected me again. Luke looked startled, which was enjoyable. "You came prepared," he said. I smiled. Women who do not prepare become cautionary tales told by men who say they are very sorry. He agreed to most of it by the end of the week. Not out of generosity, out of leverage. Timing matters in negotiation. Ask after you have proved your value and before the panic fades. Meanwhile, the office rumor mill spun itself dizzy. Dana had not just misunderstood technology, she had been using borrowed admin access for weeks, nudging workflows she did not understand, trying to manufacture authority through secret visibility. In plain language, she had been peeking behind locked doors because she thought leadership meant possession. By then, my anger had evolved into something more elegant. I was not interested in humiliating her. I wanted to outgrow her so thoroughly that everyone who had dismissed me would have to watch the difference in real time. Sometime after the executive review, Dana returned to the office looking like someone had been informed that charm no longer counted as a credential. She was not fired. That would have been too clean, too decisive, too satisfying for the women who had to watch her drift upward on borrowed connections. Luke and legal called it a reassignment. The rest of us called it what it was: exile with a badge. She was moved into a vague internal role involving documentation hygiene, which sounded important until you realized it meant she could ruin only stationery. No direct reports, no system privileges, no client meetings without supervision. She went from acting like a queen on a shaky throne to auditing naming conventions in a basement office with bad lighting. She got off easy, and that irritated me more than I expected. Then I remembered something useful. Consequences are not always loud. Sometimes the best revenge is administrative. Public credibility gone, access gone, influence gone. The title stays just pretty enough to avoid a lawsuit while every meaningful door clicks shut. Wes was promoted into her old lane. Unlike Dana, he knew what he did not know, which made him safer already. Mina took over technical operations for the audit team. I was given the remediation program and a formal promotion into strategic risk. The new pay bump finally made my condo fund look less like a dream and more like a spreadsheet with excellent posture. Dana tried speaking to me near the break area one gray morning. "I never meant to hurt you," she said. "There are sentences that beg for forgiveness, and sentences that ask for absolution without earning it." Hers belonged to the second category. "Intent does not cancel impact," I said, "especially when someone with access decides rules are optional." She looked offended, which was almost artistic. "You always made me feel incompetent." I nearly admired the nerve. Dana had the rare talent of treating facts as a personal attack. "No," I told her. "Your decisions did that. I only noticed." She left with that stiff little walk people use when their dignity is trying to exit ahead of them. The delicious part came later, when I rewrote the client remediation framework she had bungled. I tightened contract language around incident reporting, vendor obligations, and audit cooperation. I pushed for plain English clauses clients could actually understand, because good contracts are not cages. They are maps. When terms are vague, the stronger party usually wins, and women are too often urged to sign quickly and smile nicely. I started hosting internal briefings on practical risk. Not lectures, translations, how to document instructions from leadership, how to separate personal and company devices, how to preserve evidence, how to challenge authority without theatrics, how to read an indemnity clause before it quietly eats your weekend and your bank account. The response surprised me. Women from sales, finance, and client support began stopping by my office. They wanted help reviewing side business contracts, lease addenda, caregiver payment arrangements for aging parents. None of it was abstract. It was life with bills attached. I told them what I had learned the hard way. Keep copies. Know who owns the device, the account, the property, the signature. If someone says trust me, ask what they are willing to put in writing. If a family member wants access to an elder's funds, use dual controls and paper trails. If a partner calls a house shared while your name is missing from the deed, that is romance speaking over law. Law is less flattering and far more useful. By then, the office had changed its tune. No one brushed off my observations anymore. It was satisfying, but also a little sad. Women should not need a public collapse to be believed. Still, I took the win. Because every now and then, justice arrives not with thunder, but with an updated org chart and a larger direct deposit. By early morning a few weeks later, I was standing in my kitchen reviewing closing estimates for the condo my sister and I planned to buy together. 2 names on title, a written cost-sharing agreement, survivorship language reviewed carefully, not romantically. I had become the sort of woman who read legal clauses with tea and pleasure, which was either maturity or a highly specific side effect of office betrayal. At Quillforge, the gossip had cooled into something more useful than scandal: caution. People locked their devices. Managers asked before accessing anything. Security updated policy language around personal equipment and admin privileges. Legal required training that was less sleepy than usual because my case had given every slide a villain with excellent shoes and terrible judgment. Dana remained in her small role, fading slowly from executive mythology into office folklore. New hires heard about a manager who tried to play spy without understanding the software and ended up demoted into irrelevance. The story traveled because it was funny, but it lasted because it was instructive. That was the real ending. Not her fall. Mine rise. Wes handled his promotion well. Mina flourished. Luke became almost embarrassingly respectful around me, the way men do when they realize competence can invoice. I did not mistake that for enlightenment. And I took it for what it was: leverage with good lighting. One afternoon, Luke asked whether I would lead a Women in Leadership forum for clients. I said yes, but only if I could make it practical. So I stood in a bright conference room and told a polished crowd what I wished more women heard sooner. Protect your income like it is a person you love. Keep an emergency fund in your own name. Understand the difference between access and ownership. Read employment agreements before the crisis, not during it. Review beneficiary designations because wills do not magically fix everything. Never assume family loyalty prevents financial abuse. Never assume professional titles equal competence. And never, ever confuse someone being underestimated with someone being powerless. I did not mention Dana by name. I did not need to. Every woman in that room had met some version of her: the pleasant incompetent, the connected manager, the person who fails upward until they collide with someone who keeps receipts. After the talk, a client named Lila pulled me aside. She said she had been letting her business partner use her personal laptop for convenience and had never thought about liability, data access, or ownership trails. She said she was also buying property with a fiancé and had not considered what happened if one person paid and the other only promised. We spoke for a while, and I watched the light come on in her face. Not fear, clarity. That is the kind of revenge I prefer now. Not shattered glass, not screaming matches, not fantasies, structure, contracts, boundaries, promotion, evidence, the deeply unfashionable thrill of being right in writing. Around sunset, I passed Dana in the hallway. She gave me a small, cautious nod. I returned it, not warmly, not cruelly, just enough to acknowledge that we both understood the final balance sheet. She had gambled with access, appearances, and my privacy because she thought no one would question her. I had answered with documentation, strategy, and patience. She kept a salary and lost a future. I kept my name, gained a stronger title, and bought the condo. For a woman in corporate security, that is poetry.